Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystic Therapist podcast. We're doing a special episode right now. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm very cozy in my room. I got my nice little tea, and we are going to be basically having an anxious attachment masterclass today. So, why you overthink, why you chase love, and why you fear being left or abandoned. And especially if this is coming up in relationships. And not only while this is happening, or if you identify with anxious attachment style, but also how do I heal it? Okay, like how do I get rid of this? How do I work with this? And how do I develop more secure attachment from anxious attachment so I can have better relationships? So that is what we are going to be talking about today. So cheers. Go ahead and get cozy with me and let's dive right in. So, have you ever convinced yourself someone is losing interest just because they took a little bit longer to reply? Or maybe your friend of several years didn't respond to you for an entire day and you're like, oh my God, because they're mad at me. Do you constantly analyze conversations after they happen? Do you constantly feel like somebody's going to leave or you're going to lose somebody? Do you constantly seek validation? Or maybe people have told you you're like a little bit clingy or you have codependent type of behaviors. Do you feel like you need a lot of reassurance just to feel okay in a relationship or in a friendship, or you always want to be talking to them, connected to them? You're always calling them, texting them, wanting to be in contact because it's providing you with ease and reassurance. Or maybe someone pulls away just a little bit and your anxiety just automatically is just like skyrocketing. So if this is you, first, I want to let you know you are not crazy too much and you are definitely not alone. This is what we call anxious attachment, most likely. I'll obviously go more in depth onto different aspects of anxious attachment if this identifies with you. But honestly, I'm a mental health therapist. I see thousands of people and anxious attachment style. Well, if you are a person that's naturally prone to anxiety, you probably have a little bit of an anxious attachment style as well. Also, if you're somebody who had some instability growing up or some bad relationships, bad friendships, stuff like that, probably have anxious attachment style. So today we are going to be talking about what it is, how it develops, how it shows up in adulthood, and most importantly, how can you begin to heal it and have secure love, and you don't have to worry about this anxious feeling in your relationships, and people will actually, in your relationships, start to chase you more and start to really adore that you feel so secure in yourself. The most important part is that you're going to feel a lot more at peace, a lot more secure, a lot more confident in just you as a person and not always reaching for love and reassurance and attention in other people. So that is what we are going to be diving into today. Cheers. Let's get into it. So, why does this topic even matter in the first place? So, like I said, I'm a licensed mental health therapist. A lot of people come to therapy with anxiety of some degree, two, or B. I said A. Okay, A and B. B is relationship problems. So pretty much every single person that I see. Because love is a huge part of our life. Relationships, they form who we are. They form how we feel. They can shape our mental health. They shape our experiences, our interactions. And even if you don't have relationships, feeling lonely. So relationships are a big part of life. We need relationships. We need connection with other people. And so this is a very, very common topic that comes up a lot in therapy. And if you're watching this, you probably resonate with it in some sort of way. The thing is almost everybody experiences attachment wounds to some degree. So there's different attachment styles. I'm not going to get into the other ones much today, just anxious attachment and how to develop a secure attachment, but there's avoidant. There's disorganized. There's fearful avoidant. There's some different attachment styles, but the primary ones are anxious, avoidant, and secure. The reason we're talking about this is because you're not stuck. You are not stuck with this attachment style. You can heal it. You can develop secure attachment, and we're going to dive all into that. So this episode is not about blaming your parents or labeling yourself. It is about understanding your nervous system, how these wounds developed, with compassion so that you can actually move through it and develop great, healthy, amazing relationships in your life. Friendships, relationship with your family members, all the good things. So what is attachment? Like, what does this word mean? So attachment is basically the blueprint your brain develops for relationships. It is formed at a very, very young age, usually with your first caregivers, but also your first intimate relationships and your first friendships. So your first relationships that you have, whether with your mom, with your dad, with your caregivers, with your friends, with a boyfriend or girlfriend, this is basically like the first draft of the instruction manual that your nervous system writes about love. So the first time you have these experiences, that's what you learn. Your nervous system, your brain is like, okay, so this is what love is like. It basically writes this instruction manual, and then it just writes it for you. And then you go about in all your relationships expecting those same experiences because of what was written in the first draft. So questions that your brain will often ask when it comes to attachment styles is, am I safe? Can I trust people? Can I trust this person? Will people be here? Do my needs matter? Do they like me? What happens when I express emotions? So I want you to just think about those questions to yourself right now. Can I trust people? What was trust like? Do my needs matter? How are my needs experienced growing up? Do people care about my needs? Do they respond to my needs? How are my emotions? When I expressed my emotions, was I told I was too much? Was I told I didn't care or to do it alone or that we don't want to see that? So start to think about yourself. Did somebody abandon you? This is how attachment starts to shape you and how you are going to be in adult relationships. So children adapt to what they see and what they are given in their relationships. Children are just like fresh out the womb. They learn everything based off of the experiences we have. You and I, we are just a product of our experiences that we have. So children adapt. Your nervous system is brilliant. It is so, so, so smart. I talk about nervous system all the time. Definitely watch my other videos if you haven't already, and subscribe. But your nervous system is brilliant, and it learns strategies that it needs in order to survive. We've been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been doing this since we were living in villages to be accepted into the tribe, things like this. It's a very ancient, instinctual survival feeling. That is why our relationships are a big reason why people go to therapy and a big reason why people struggle with their mental health or lack thereof, the relationships. So those strategies that you learn as a child in your relationships, they are the strategies that become adult habits, essentially. So we'll kind of dive more deep into this. So the very relationships that helped you survive childhood now might be hurting your adult relationships. What you had to do to survive, now you're an adult. Now maybe you are able to survive. You don't need your parents. You're living on your own. You have your own money. You're like, okay, you can feed yourself. You have a roof over your head. But those attachment patterns are still there. They're deeply ingrained into our nervous system. So what creates anxious attachment? So lots of different things create anxious attachment. The first one is an inconsistent caregiver, an inconsistent parent. This is a big one. So a parent that is in and out a lot. Maybe sometimes they're very attentive to you. Other times they're not there. Or maybe they were there up until a certain age and then they left and then they came back, or they never came back. Inconsistent caregivers, also children of parents who have addictions, alcoholism, alcoholics, those children, they deal with a lot of instability and walking around on eggshells. They never know what they're going to get from their caregiver. They don't know if they're going to be nice or if they're going to be upset or if they're going to be sleeping or if they're going to be really, really talkative. That instability, not knowing to what expect, that causes anxiety in a child from a young age. Another thing is emotionally unavailable parents or people. So, when children have emotions, right? And when a child is trying to express their emotions, they're crying, they're angry, they're upset, then if a parent is emotionally unavailable, they're not able to hold those emotions for the child becomes very alone. They feel like nobody's there for them. They don't know how to cope with their own emotions. And sometimes emotionally available parents can cause an anxious attachment style. Maybe that parent was also very anxious and clingy towards you, and then you became anxious and clingy towards them, and it just become this like codependent dynamic. So it can be either side of that spectrum when it comes to emotionally available to unavailable parents. Divorce. Your parents were together and then you turned 12 and now they're separated. causes a lot of anxiety for a child, causes a lot of adjustment. That's a huge adjustment going from having the family unit. That's all you are used to. That is how you've been ingrained. That is what you have learned. And then all of a sudden, dad isn't around anymore. All of a sudden, your mom hates your dad. And they spent all these years loving each other. Maybe they spent all these years fighting each other. Walking on eggshells, emotional unpredictability, critical parents, parents who are really critical, and this can develop people pleasers. So, kids who always got criticism or you're doing this wrong, they only got praise or attention when they were like not doing something wrong. This develops people pleasers. And so they're always seeking reassurance. Am I going to get pleased or am I going to get reprimanded? It creates anxiety, and they're looking for that praise and that positivity from their parent. And if they don't get it, they get really scared on like what's going to happen. Needing to earn love. That's a big one. Sometimes a lot of parents, and maybe your parents or whoever, but they only really give you love and attention through achievements. Oh, you did so good on your test. I'm going to do all these special things for you. And if you're not achieving things, then I don't really give you attention. So then that child becomes like a super overachiever and can get burnt out and overwhelmed and stressed. We could go in so many different directions with this. Another thing is feeling responsible for parents. If the kid feels like they have to take on extra responsibility, that can be another reason. So it doesn't require severe trauma to have anxious attachment style. Even children with very normal, non-traumatic childhoods can develop anxious attachment style. I see it all the time. Little experiences that are repeated thousands of times can start to shape the brain. So what happens whenever you have, in your childhood, in your upbringing, is your nervous system starts to learn with anxious attachment that love feels uncertain, or I have to work for a connection, or people leave. I'm not sure when I'm going to see this person again. I need to stay hyper aware at all times. I got to stay on guard. I got to stay on alert because I never know what's going to happen. So having these things that the brain learns, children who grow up in like unpredictable, unstable, and all those things that I mentioned, households, it wires their brain, and it creates that first draft. It creates the instruction manual for like, this is how relationships are, because this is how I am with my mom. This is how I am with my dad. This is how they are with each other. Children are sponges. They're absorbing everything. So fast forward 20 years, your nervous system is still running on the same software unless you take a look at it, which is what you are doing right now by listening and watching to this podcast episode. So unless you are aware of it and you take steps to heal it. So what are some signs of anxious attachment? There's a lot of different signs. So I'm going to read through a list of a lot of different ones. And I want you to just think if these resonate with you. I invite you to reflect and to think about, wow, this really resonates with my experience. These are some big signs of anxious attachment. Overthinking texts, overthinking communication, making a negative story about something that maybe that's not actually accurate. Like someone says, I can't make it today. And you're like, oh, it's because they don't like me. They don't want to hang out with me. Of course. That's why they can't make it today. Checking somebody else's social media. Are they online? Did they see my post? Did they like my story? Are they going to respond to me? Are people going to like? So kind of that like people pleasing and seeking reassurance and validation. Those are some signs of anxious attachment. And these signs can be so subtle, but they will follow you around in your relationships. Trust me. People pleasing, wanting, always saying yes, not able to say no, not able to set boundaries, not able to stand up for yourself and express your needs. You want to be liked. Anxious attachment people, they feel insecure in themselves. They need another person to like them in order to feel that security. They're anxious, they're uncertain, and so they seek that from another person. So if you have people-pleasing tendencies, difficulty saying no, like I said, they often will put others before them because they think that that is literally what makes them feel better, even though it's not. But for an anxious attachment, that is what makes them feel better. Fear of abandonment, huge one that can pop up. I see it so often. If you were abandoned in any way, shape, or form as a child, having a fear of abandonment, having a fear that someone's going to leave, like you enter a relationship. And of course, a little bit of fear, like when you like someone, it's okay. But when it becomes overwhelming, like I'm just scared everybody's going to leave or everyone's going to pass or I'm going to lose everybody, that fear, big sign. big sign of anxious attachment. Reassurance seeking, always checking in, like, do you like my outfit? Do you like this? Do you think I should do this? Not being able to make your own decisions, needing a reassurance, validation from another person. Losing your identity, not having your own identity. Your identity is wrapped up in your relationships is a big one. Your mood depends on your relationship. Huge one. If you are in a relationship and your mood is always dependent on the relationship, when things are good, I'm good. Whenever he's doing bad, I'm doing bad. Your friend can be having a tough time. Your significant other can be having a tough time. That doesn't mean that your whole day has to be ruined too. You can be there for somebody. You can show empathy for somebody, compassion for somebody, hold space without it like you absorbing that energy. Very empathetic people, they can sometimes have that anxious attachment too. Not all the time though, but absorbing others' emotions and like letting someone else's mood affect your entire day. It's very codependent as well. Putting your partner on a pedestal, putting your partner above you, putting your partner over everybody else. Because anxious attachment people, they do not feel okay unless they have a partner. They idolize their partner. Like, of course, we all love our partners, but anxious attachment, like, they don't know what they would do without that person. They are obsessed. They need them as themselves. Jealousy, another sign, because they're insecure. Anxious attachment people are very insecure in themselves. So they get very jealous really easily. Feeling too much. Maybe you've been told like you're too sensitive, you're too much, you get too emotional, stuff like that. That's a sign as well. Constantly scanning for something's wrong. Is something wrong with the relationship? Is something wrong with us? Is he mad at me? Is she mad at me? Did that make them upset? Is everything okay? Are you okay? Because they're not okay if the other person's not okay. Constantly need that reassurance and checking. And then difficulty trusting good relationships. So it takes a lot for an anxious attachment person, being insecure, they feel like that person's going to leave. And so they have a hard time trusting that the relationship is going to stay, that the relationship is safe, because relationships feel a little bit unsafe sometimes. It takes a lot for them to open up and trust somebody. They're stressed. Like, are you going to leave me? Is everything okay? Are you mad at me? Do you like that other person? They're always stressed and they have a hard time trusting. So some examples would be like, maybe your partner's like, hey, I'm tired, I'm gonna go to bed. They're texting you. Your brain is like, they just don't want to talk to me, they just want to do something else. They're mad at me. Or your friend cancels dinner. Oh, they just don't like me. They don't like hanging out with me. They would rather hang out with somebody else or whatever. My problem is not the event that happens. These things happen, right? Sometimes your friends cancel on you. Sometimes your partner just needs space, right? We're human. Sometimes we need space. This is a very hard thing for people with anxious attachment to understand. So the problem is not the event. These events happen. People cancel. People don't text you back. People say they want to go to bed, right? It's the story that the brain creates for people with anxious attachment. The brain starts saying it's because something's wrong with me and they don't like me and they're going to leave me because I'm not good enough. It's another story. So now let's talk about, why does your brain do this? Why is if you're thinking, you're like, okay, great. So like, what the heck is going on? Why does my brain do this? This is so annoying. So your brain does this because of so many different things. We're going to start with some like neuroscience type stuff. So there's a part in our brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala it goes on alert whenever things are stressful. The amygdala gets fired up when it gets stressed, when it feels like that survival, fight, flight, fawn, or freeze kind of kicks in. And so for anxious attachment people, they're always scanning for danger. They're always looking for a reason, is this person going to leave me? I don't feel safe in myself. Is everything okay? Their amygdala is like really, really fired up all the time. And when your amygdala is fired up, you are actually not able to think rationally. So when your amygdala gets turned on, it's like your body's alert button. You cannot think clearly at all. So that is why nervous system regulation techniques, being able to feel safe within yourself instead of getting that reassurance from another person, is key, which we'll get into that in a little bit. So it's like, how can I calm my amygdala so that I act in a correct way, essentially? Another thing is confirmation bias. If you've heard of this before, confirmation bias, it's like, well, they're just going to cancel on me or they're just going to leave me. And then when they show any sign of canceling on you or wanting to not make plans, you are going to internalize that as like, yep, exactly, because everybody does this. Or if a friend does something, weird or they don't text you back for the day, you're like, yep, of course. This is what everybody does. Everybody leaves. Nobody wants to talk to me. So it's like this confirmation bias. We have our own negative thinking and bias about trusting relationships. And then when something small happens, our brain's like, yes, exactly. So our brain is always looking for evidence that it's right. It's a really hard cycle, y'all, to be stuck in. Our nervous system. I talked a little bit about this. I talk a ton about the nervous system, but when our nervous system is fired up, we always are feeling on edge. Having a activated nervous system, our amygdala is activated, we're shaking, we're stressed, can't ever feel safe. And so being able to calm our nervous system is how we kind of combat that, just through safety. Also our core beliefs and schemas. So these are the stories we developed about ourselves and about the world and about people, often formed in childhood. So the stories we create based off the experiences that we've had. So common one, I'm not good enough because somebody told me, a teacher or a coach sometime told me that I wasn't good enough. They said, you're stupid, you can't do this. Now, forever, that core belief always gets activated through little experiences, or schemas. If you watched your parents fight a lot or something like that, or you dealt with a parent who had an addiction. You're like, wow, this is how marriages are. The father acts like this and the mother acts like this, and it's always chaotic and it's always bad. And so you have that perception of relationships that is from your upbringing. So that's a schema. They're thoughts and ideas and beliefs that we develop based on our experiences about the world and other people. Very, very, very common for anxious people. Mind reading is thinking you know what the other person's thinking. And if you have anxious attachment, you're definitely, and this is also a cognitive distortion, which is basically a false way of thinking, a negative thinking pattern that can happen. But cognitive distortion is mind reading, and that's someone who's always like, no, yeah, they don't like me, whenever there's no evidence to support that. They think that my shirt is ugly, whenever they literally said nothing, did nothing to actually make that factual. That is mind reading. It's a cognitive distortion, and anxious people can have this a lot in relationships. Think about, let's say you say something and the other person doesn't respond. They're on their phone. They're like, oh, I didn't hear you. They're listening to me. They don't want to talk to me. It's because they don't like me. They actually don't like me in the first place. It activates that. Catastrophizing. This is someone who blows something way out of proportion from something small, very similar to the other things that we're kind of talking about. So attachment influences your perception of things in a relationship, in a friendship, anything. It influences your perception, and you can have a distorted perception of things when you have an anxious attachment. It happens in the brain, in the body, in our emotions, in our psyche, all of it. And it's because of the relation or the experiences that you've had. And it's not just the experiences we've had with our parents and caregivers, also can be formed in previous relationships. So let's say you had a very abusive, toxic relationship. So, this person was crazy and they did horrible things to you, or they cheated on you. So now you have this fear, they're always going to cheat on me. And, so then you go into new relationships with that feeling. Are they going to cheat on me? What are you doing? Oh my goodness, you talked to this person. Oh my goodness, where are you? Because of, they got the anxious attachment from their previous relationship experiences, essentially. So let's give an example of what does a secure person do versus what does an anxious person do? So let's say someone doesn't text back. A secure person would think, you know what? They're probably just busy. Everything's all good. I'm good. They're probably busy. Probably get back to me tomorrow. It's not urgent. An anxious person is like, they don't like me, they're leaving. Same event, different nervous system, different perception of the situation. Your attachment style, it doesn't just change your reactions, it changes your whole perception of things that are happening. A person who's very secure in a relationship versus a person that's anxious, if you're dating someone who's secure and you're anxious, they're going to be like, what? Why would you ever think that? I would never even think that. And you have the perception you do because of the experiences you've had. They never had those experiences. They have a whole other perception of things. They interpret things in a whole different way, essentially. So now I'm going to walk through the relationship cycle. So how does this play out in a relationship? I know I've kind of dived into it a little bit, but I'm going to talk about how exactly this might be playing out. I want you to, as I walk through this, think about your relationships that you're in. Like I said, it doesn't have to just be an intimate relationship. It could be a friendship. It could be a relationship with your mom and dad. It could be a relationship with the general public. Maybe you don't trust the general public. I'm going to walk through this, and I want you to start to think about how you interact with all of these different groups of people. Okay, so we're going to start with a trigger. It always starts with a trigger. Something triggering happens, okay? In the relationship, they didn't text you back. They said, I got to get off the phone. I'm busy. They say, I'm going to go hang out with this friend. They look at you in a weird way, that you've never seen before. Then your fear comes up, the fear-based feelings, the insecure feelings. Then you start overthinking and creating these stories. Oh, yeah, it's because they actually don't like me. Oh, yeah, it's because I've never been good enough. It's because I'm ugly. It's because he likes another person. Then you start seeking reassurance because you're thinking this. So that's the difference between anxious and avoidant. The avoidant person, when they start overthinking and have fear, they're like, you know what? Whatever. I'm not going to talk to this person. I'm going to avoid this person. I'm better off alone. I don't need them. Whatever, but push people away. The anxious person is like, no, so I need your reassurance from this. So they start seeking reassurance. Hey, I felt like you didn't like this or like that. You don't like me. Is everything okay? I'm really stressed. They're seeking all of this validation and reassurance from that person. Then the partner feels a little bit overwhelmed. Like, this is not the case at all. Like, what is going on? And they might even start to pull away a little bit because it feels overwhelming. They're like, and especially this is hard if you are an anxious attachment and you're in a relationship with somebody who's avoidant. That is like, you know, it's like the worst cycle to be stuck in. So it's really helpful too to know your friends and your relationships and everyone's around you. It's helpful to know their attachment styles too. But so your partner pulls away and because they're like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. And then your fear is confirmed. Nobody likes me. I'm ugly, whatever it is. It's like this loop. And that's why anxious attachment feels very self-fulfilling. It's like that self-fulfilling prophecy that you might have heard of before. Trigger, fear, overthink. I need you, I need you, I need you. Can you text me back? I need you. I'm so stressed because I got triggered, blah, 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 blah. They're like, holy crap, what is going on? And you're like, oh yeah, you know what? It's always gonna be this way. It's because nobody likes me. Blah, 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 blah. So that is the loop that you get stuck in with anxious attachment. So talked all very in depth about all things anxious attachment. And now you're probably thinking, okay, so like, what the heck do I do with all this information? Like, how do I get rid of this? How do I heal it? I want my relationships to be better. I want to feel more secure. I want to feel more at peace. I want to feel better. So this is so important. Your anxious attachment or your attachment style is not your identity. It is changeable. People often get this confused. I just have anxious attachment. That's why I act this way. No, you have the capacity. You're an adult. You can admit, I do have this issue or, this thing about me, and I'm not going to judge it. Don't judge yourself. Always be kind to yourself. It's okay. You didn't choose this. It just like happened, but it is your responsibility to heal it so that you can have better relationships, which I know that you want. We all want that. We all want to feel good within ourselves. You don't want to feel insecure. You don't want to be like super clingy. You want to be like, yeah, I don't need your reassurance. I know I look good. Or like, you know what, if you don't like me, that's fine. I like me. Like you want to feel like that. And so this is where the healing part comes in. So first part to any healing and any mental health, but definitely with this one is awareness. You cannot change anything unless you are aware of it. So the fact that you're learning about it is a great step. But in your day-to-day life, in your personal interactions, you need to start become aware of when your anxious attachment gets triggered and call it out to yourself. Label it. This is my attachment style getting triggered right now. Name the trigger. You know what? This is my anxious attachment getting triggered. I'm having an abandonment wound pop up right now. Label the trigger. Label the trigger that's getting activated. I'm having insecurity pop up right now. Labeling it creates distance and it helps you not get so intertwined with the trigger and with the experience that you're having. Once you name the trigger, pause. Okay? Just pause. Take a deep breath. Because you know what happened when you got triggered? Amygdala is like, whoa, whoa, are we okay? Do we need to, are you in danger? Oh my gosh, do I need to help you? Pause. Regulate. Maybe you want to give yourself a hug, take a deep breath, go in another room, do a calming regulation technique. Maybe you're just going to go in the bathroom and take some deep breaths. Splash some cold water on your face. I talk about so many different coping mechanisms and ways to regulate yourself. So definitely look at my other videos if you're like, what should I do? But just find a way to regulate and to get that amygdala not fired up. And then you are going to be like, what is the facts of the situation versus my story that I always tell myself? What actually happened? Not what is my perception? What is my anxious, trauma-based perception? So You're going to be like, the fact of the situation is that I texted him this and he responded and said, I can't talk right now. That is it. He didn't say he didn't want to talk to me. He didn't say it was because he was annoyed. He didn't say anything. He could be busy at work. He could be driving a car, right? He could be on an important phone call, like try to stop yourself and fact check yourself away from the story that your perception and that fear-based, trauma-based, anxious attachment story starts to like grab a hold of you. That's inner child work. Okay. So that leads into inner child work. So what is inner child work? Brief little like intro. Inner child work is telling your younger self that was in those situations that were very real and very safe. You're feeling triggered right now. I know you're scared. This is scary. I know that this is stressful. But I'm here for you. I am here for you. You are safe. I am here for you. You are enough. Start to heal that wound that gets activated in the inner child in you. Tell yourself you're safe. Tell yourself it's okay now. And that wasn't fair that those situations that happened to you, it was very real, very painful situations, but this is not the same situation. You're safe. Validate your own emotions. I understand why I feel this way. It's because of those messed up freaking relationships that I've been in. It's because I've been cheated on. It's because my parents divorced. It's because my mom was an alcoholic. Validate your emotions. Your emotions are real. And then give yourself that soothing love and support. Also, another thing is learning boundaries. Learning boundaries with the other person. Maybe this is a conversation that you need to have with the other person. Hey, I notice that sometimes I feel a little insecure. Have an open communication and conversation about maybe some boundaries that need to be established, maybe a way that they could help you through this, or that they could be like, hey, everything's fine. I love you, but I need space right now. Like talk to them, maybe learn some boundaries, some things that would help them in the relationship. That could be really, really helpful. Another thing to develop more secure attachment is building a life outside of the relationship. Your relationship is a big part of your life. Your friendships, big part of your life. Relationships are a massive part of our lives. But so are our other relationships or our other friendships. So is your career. So is your health. So is your hobbies. So is all those things that you want to do. So is your own travel. So is your own passions. Okay. So make sure you are still building a life outside of the relationship and that you're filling your cup in other ways and that you're focusing on those other outlets that are good for you. This is going to be good for you, good for the person in the relationship. It's going to be good all around. So make sure you're still building life outside of that relationship. Choose emotion, if you can, try to choose people who are secure. It's not possible, right? And you don't want to be like, are you secure? Because I'm anxious. I'm looking for a secure person. But try to choose people who are pretty secure in themselves and emotionally available, because the worst cycle to get trapped in is like, you're anxious, they're avoidant. We're just like in this crazy cycle, right? It's enough for you to have to work on yourself, and it can be a lot more whenever they also have work to do. So just try to choose those emotionally available people if you can, or ask them to work on it too. Their attachment style, have conversations about it. Is communicating directly, tell them why you have these responses. If you feel comfortable, you don't have to talk to a therapist about it, but tell them why you have these responses. Like, hey, I had a really bad relationship. And so sometimes when I react in this way, I know it's not the best. And it's because I just get triggered because of these situations that happened in the past. And I know that's not an excuse. And I'm not telling you it's an excuse, but I'm just helping you understand me a little bit more and why I have these reactions, and I'm working on it. Communicate these things to the other person. Repair instead of panic. Repair is massive in relationships. It is necessary. Make it a priority to come back together and repair it. Hey, I'm sorry for the way that I acted. I want to do better next time. How can I do better? How can I make sure this doesn't happen again? What are some ideas you have? And here's some ideas that I have. Come together when you're both regulated and have a conversation about like, how can we avoid this? How can we work on this? What can we commit to? And then practice secure behaviors. Practice things that help you feel confident and safe and secure within yourself. So secure behaviors would be like doing your own thing. Start, maybe going on a walk alone, going to the beach alone, having to always communicate to them because I'm going to worry about them. I'm going to call my other friend, or I'm going to go read my book, or I'm going to do my own work. I'm going to do my own thing. Start building a secure life within yourself, financially, emotionally, physically, mentally, working on you. That is the best thing that you could do for yourself. and your relationships and your life is to work on you and your own confidence and things like that. Healing is not about becoming hyper independent because you don't want to go on the other way into the spectrum because then you might be avoidant, hyper independent. It can be a trauma response and all that. Healing is about becoming secure. That is what the anxious attachment person needs, is to become secure within themselves. There's a huge difference. More independent, yes, but it's more about security within you. I'm good. I'm okay. I'm still safe. So a couple other things I want to talk about is that secure people, just because you're secure, I have a secure attachment style now. I used to have an anxious attachment style. Secure people still get anxious. They still get insecure. They still get hurt. They still have needs. The difference is they don't let fear make every single decision that they have. They don't let their old stories cloud their judgment and their perception. They're working on it. And so it's not about never experiencing anxiety, insecurities, jealousies, triggers, any of that. You're human. To judge yourself for experiencing emotions, right? Sometimes we don't choose our emotions, they pop up. Worst thing you can do is have a reactive emotion to your emotion. Oh my God, I'm so pissed that I'm experiencing anxiety. Now you're pissed and you have anxiety instead of before it was just anxiety. So take out the judgment. Being secure and having anxiety doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. Just means that, this happened to me based off of very real painful experiences and I want to work through it because I want to feel better within myself. And I'm still going to slip up sometimes and things are going to happen sometimes, and that doesn't take away from my progress. That doesn't take away from my growth and that I'm trying. Most people don't even try. So I hope you feel proud of yourself. So maybe nobody ever taught you that your nervous system can feel calm. Maybe you were never shown that relationships can actually be calm and secure and healthy and not codependent, not full of fighting and insecurity and jealousy and all this stuff. Maybe you learned that closeness to another person meant anxiety and instability, but healing is possible. You don't have to become somebody else. You don't have to stop loving deeply and feeling deeply. That is your gift. We are the deep feelers. It is beautiful to be a sensitive, deep person. You don't have to become emotionally unavailable to protect yourself. You just have to teach your nervous system something new. You have to teach your nervous system that you are safe with and secure within yourself. I am good. And that comes through all of those different things that I talked about. And literally all of those different healing things I could talk about for hours, but I just wanted to give you a roadmap on where to begin and where to go with this. So if this resonated with you, definitely save this video, subscribe, comment, like, so that you can see other videos that are talking about all these other healing modalities for your nervous system. And new videos, new podcast episodes every single Wednesday. We are here. And, I have other videos that get thrown up over the week too. So definitely let me know what resonated with you, what part surprised you. Maybe share this with somebody who needs it or that you feel like would benefit. And I will see you in the next episode.